do not try these at home.
A newborn baby is too dark.
Oh, that was not a fairness cream ad. That was for glowing, beautiful skin.
कि हम सबके अंदर एक गोरा है. Hi, I am Sania Irfan.
And I am Oishika Chaudhary.
We are Yaars truly.
Fair and Lovely.
Fair and Lovely. Fair and Lovely Advanced. Fair and Lovely Multivitamin. Fair and Lovely Face Wash.
Do you remember those ads on TV? Do you also see them on a daily basis?
We did, and at the end, after the girl had become fair, she got some kind of reward, like the guy she liked, or when they tried to act progressive, a job. So messed up.
That's so funny. That was considered progressive. But dude, you know what's crazy? Like, even though now we acknowledge these things as being problematic, back then this was completely normal to me. I didn't think of it as wrong. To me, this just meant, oh, fair was a synonym for beautiful. And I just saw these ads on TV every day. And I thought if I applied the cream, I would actually become 50 shades lighter. Yeah, that was crazy. But dude, do you remember they even had those shade cards in the ad? That was so creepy.
Yeah, and when we can't get that color naturally, we douse ourselves in foundations many shades lighter. When we see this especially with brides who are made to look like completely different people at their weddings because they've got to look their best, and looking their best means looking white.
Dude, this is so true of weddings in India as well. When brides will go to the parlor for their bridal makeup, the parlor lady always has just one foundation, and it's the lightest possible foundation. And your face color will not match your neck because everybody gets that one foundation. But actually, I was watching this episode of Made in Heaven, and it was so sad because the mother of the bride was the one to be like, oh, she's so dark skinned and she can't look darkest amongst all her friends in the wedding pictures, so we have to give her skin lightening treatments.
Parents are supposed to want the best for their child, and I've seen grandparents express genuine concern that a newborn baby, is too dark and they hope they will grow fair.
Dude, as a brown skinned woman in India, like who was born and brought up in India, I relate to that so hard. And this propaganda is so strong in India that fair skinned kids are taught from a very young age that their skin color is an asset, and darker skinned kids are made to feel like they're deficient in some sort of way.
Were there instances where you personally saw this being perpetuated?
Oh, for sure. Like, if you grew up brown skin in India, I'm pretty sure you were bullied at one point or another. And I feel like, sadly, a lot of what I experienced as bullying was kind of unintentional on the part of the people bullying me. It's just the propaganda they're constantly surrounded with. So, you know, like how a lot of parents will try to get their kids to eat vegetables and fruits by making up stories and making like little airplanes out of carrot pieces and feed it into their mouths. So I remember in India, a lot of parents would tell their kids that if they ate their veggies and fruits, they'd become several shades lighter. And, you know, because I was the good kid in a lot of other ways, like I scored well and did well in school, parents would often use me for comparison. So they'd be like, oh, look, Oishika eats all her veggies and she eats all her fruits. And the kids would go like, but then why isn't she light skinned? Why is she so dark if she eats all her fruits and veggies?
Oh my God. This also goes to show we think whiteness is superior in every way. White is not only beautiful and natural, it's like Fair and Lovely ads really made us think कि हम सबके अंदर एक गोरा है because it's such a natural thing और उसे सिर्फ बाहर निकलने की देर है.
That's so funny. There's a white version of us living inside. That's funny. But you know what's funny is that when I felt bad that people made these comments about my skin, the people who loved me and cared about me, they didn't know how to console me. And instead of saying that, you know, it's just skin color, it's just dark skin, light skin, there's many shades, instead of saying something like that, they would say, Asha, don't worry so much. You're not that dark. You're pretty fair skinned compared to other people. And, you know, if you apply home remedies and all, it'll get even better.
That's ridiculous. So the question is, where does this obsession with fairness come from?
Gori, 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 Gori.
Obviously, being ruled by white people for centuries is where this is rooted, but it is perpetuated by our pop culture, our ads, movies, songs.
Oh, for sure. And I feel like this is a massive way in which Bollywood has failed us year after year because not only is a female love interest just referred to as Gori in songs, literally she is pointed out to be beautiful because she's fair-skinned or Gori. And I feel like this is different from, like, when you read books and the author is describing someone's chocolate colored eyes or like I don't know, black tresses or whatever. That's very different. This, like in Bollywood, they make it sound like, oh, she's beautiful because of her beautiful white skin.
On the contrary, while there are a lot of Gori songs, there are far fewer Savli songs like this one from Vital Signs.
Dude, do you remember the super long phase we had in Bollywood where they had white backup dancers for all songs like Shava Shava and whatnot?
Yes, I do, because we are obsessed with white people, but also I think that is the way to show that a Desi man is the epitome of desirability when white women are obsessing over him.
Dude, and I feel like we have both seen the impact of this during our time at uni, right? Like met a lot of other brown men who thought that bagging a white girlfriend really proves something.
Bagging, good God. On the contrary, I think we assume that finding a less fair partner is a downgrade.
Oh, definitely. I don't know if you remember that scene from Fashion or if you've even watched Fashion, but there was a scene where Priyanka is in her dark side of, like, that's the dark side of her character where, the power goes to her head and everything. And anyway, the point is one of the scenes they had in the movie was that she's so spoiled and she's so beyond and beneath her character that she ends up sleeping with this black man and she wakes up the next morning and she feels terrible about herself. And a lot of fans of the movie and of Priyanka Chopra have called her out on that scene, saying like, okay, this is very obviously racist. Um, and I remember that neither the directors nor the actors, no one ever apologized for that scene or made any sort of comment about it. And I feel the same about Yami Gautam too. She's done so many Fair and Lovely ads. She was the face of that brand for so long, and she's never acknowledged the impact that this has had on her audiences. And I've seen a lot of these actresses who perpetuate these beauty standards. They will never take responsibility for it, no accountability. They will just straight up gaslight the audience and be like, oh, that was not a fairness cream ad, that was for glowing beautiful skin.
Yeah, the biggest gaslight is Fair and Lovely changing its name to Glow and Lovely, as if that has changed anything.
Yeah, somehow they thought glow is a more politically correct term for fair.
Yeah, and while explicit forms of colorism are getting reduced due to the pressure to be quote unquote cancelled, colorism can still be felt everywhere. For example, the vast majority of our leading ladies in Pakistani dramas and many Indian movies are fair skinned.
Dude, I feel like a lot of these actor and actresses are not even fair skinned or fair enough to make the cut. But the thing is that they will put like tremendous amounts of lighting on them, or they will put a lot of like a lighter makeup, or some people will straight up just get skin lightening treatments to look fairer. And when people ask them about it, they'll just be like, oh, we just stayed away from the sun and we put besan and haldi and whatnot, and that's how we became 10 shades lighter. And by the way, do not try these at home. They are not verified by a doctor. They may be harmful, but that's the sad truth. Did you ever hear about any of these home remedies that people did in Pakistan, Sanya, to be fairer?
I've definitely heard of them, but never truly been personally impacted. We did have a woman come over to our house once, and this is a lower working class woman talking about how she was trying home remedies on her daughter to make her more worthy of marriage. And I, in my position of privilege, said, why would you want to marry your daughter to someone who cares about skin color? Because A, I'm not a particularly dark skinned Desi, and B, I have the privilege of getting educated and building my career. So I don't need to be married to a man in order for my life to flourish. But so in my naivety, I was applying that same logic. And this woman replied, we can say all of these things, but at the end of the day, she has to get married. And I will do what I can to get her married. And that made me realize that colorism, like every other social issue, impacts you even more if you are in the lower class.
Definitely. I think it definitely impacts you based on your caste as well, in India at least. In fact, if I'm remembering correctly, a lot of the root of colorism definitely comes from colonization, but a lot of it is also because historically a lot of the Dalits and the lower class people did have darker skin tones. Again, because they had to work outside in the sun, they didn't hold the blue collar jobs, right? And because of that, dark skin kind of it has this even bigger negative connotation, and it affects how we view dark skinned people and how we treat them.
No, I didn't know that. And colorism also impacts you more if you are a woman because women are expected to look pretty and pretty is assumed to be white. Men can often get away with the tall, dark, and handsome trope.
And actually, I don't know if you have seen this in Pakistan, but in India, like when they have a newspaper column and they have like requirements for a bride, it's always like she needs to be fair skin, and
Oh,
people will want the bride to be much fairer than the husband. In fact, I have seen in marriages where one of the partners is dark skin and the other one's fair skin, people are just like, oh man, I really hope the baby turns out to be like the lighter skin parent.
because lighter skin to us is not just pretty, it is also purer, morally superior. And we're conditioned to believe this from a young age when the hero is fair and the villain is often dark skinned. And not just in Desi shows, right? Like Disney movies, Jafar and Aladdin, or video game characters who turn, when they turn evil, they get tanned like Ken to evil Ken in Super Street Fighter.
Oh yeah, and if you watch Drishyam, we were watching it the other day, and we see Guy Thorne, who's like one of he's not the villain, but yeah, he's one of the detestable characters on the in the movie. And the first thing we notice is that this is such purposeful casting. They made sure that this man who we're supposed to hate is South Indian and he's dark skinned. Like that was just so in your face. And even in Made in Heaven, where the bride was getting these skin lightening treatments, which, mind you, was terrible for her and her skin kept breaking out, she believed that she needed it because everyone around her kept telling her, like, she'd go wedding dress shopping, and her family and her husband's family together would get on top of her and be like, no, don't wear pink, like, or don't wear this other shade, you will look even darker. And even when the doctor sees her in the show, like the dermatologist, because her skin's breaking out, instead of saying don't take the skin lightening treatments, they're bad for you, he's just like, no, no, here's some medicines, you keep taking those treatments because it's so common, people are doing it every day. And that was just so crazy to me, that every day, like, hundreds of girls back in India are getting this procedure done, and it's touted as being completely safe when it's really not.
This reminds me of Churels, which was a TV series by Pakistani director Asim Abbasi, and it shows that there's a skin lightening cream that is carcinogenic, but the truth is kept hidden, not only to ensure that the company keeps making money, but also to satiate the desires of men who want perfect white objects to consume, quite frankly. But I'm really glad that shows now are talking about the evil fairness industry because it has for so long made us feel that being beautiful is only possible if you are fair.
Oh, yeah. And even when you are beautiful, if you're not fair, the compliments you get are so backhanded. Like, I remember when I was young, people would say things to me like, oh, you're so beautiful, even though you're dark. Oh, you're so pretty, but you're so dark. Like, this was a conundrum they really couldn't get past. They're like, how can you be pretty and dark? This is just completely a paradox, like veg biryani. This should not exist. And it was funny when everything failed, and when I would still cry about this, because mind you, I did come home crying from school a lot of times. They would point me to this song with its supposedly positive messaging because it was supposed to make me feel good and comfortable and very empowered in my skin.
हम काले हैं तो क्या हुआ दिल वाले हैं. Oh man. Yeah, your beauty is considered an exception, not the norm for your skin color.
Oh, yeah. And I didn't know this, but a lot of South Indian actresses have mentioned this in interviews and stuff. But apparently, a lot of them, like Hema Malini and Deepika Padukone, they'd get these backhanded compliments too, where they'd be like, "Oh, you're South Indian. You're supposed to be dark, but you're so pretty. Like, you're dark, but you're so pretty."
This is why it's so important that we have campaigns like Dark is Beautiful and shows like Made in Heaven and Churels, which call out this poisonous mentality. I also think that there is more backlash now. When in 2020 Beyonce Sharma Jayegi came out taking a dig at Beyonce's dark skin, it had to be taken down. And I do think that if that song came out in the early 2000s, this level of backlash would not have happened.
Yeah, while there are many things that are still very wrong about how beauty is perceived in our countries, it's important to not lose perspective and find hope in the progress that we have made. That's all for our conversation today about colorism, but before we go, we wanted to bring up an issue close to our hearts. The genocide has destroyed Gaza's infrastructure and livelihoods, and it will take years to rebuild. Meanwhile, the prices for food and basic necessities have skyrocketed.
But we cannot sit in despair and helplessness. So we're sharing links to two action items in the description. One is a toolkit developed by Amnesty International on what you as an individual can do to respond to the crisis. And the second is a donation link to UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine. If you have the means, this is a great place to donate to because they're providing Palestinian refugees with critical humanitarian aid. Thank you for listening.